it's my pleasure to introduce David Campbell and Philip Bergsieker. So take it away, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Success in the Field with BIM 360 Docs and Design. My name is David Campbell, and I have with me Philippe Bergsieker. Bergsieker. Oh, gosh, there we go. I got it that time.
Close enough.
It flew close enough. All right.
I'm still
So
trying to figure it out.
thanks again for joining us, Phil, and of course, all of our attendees out there. Thank you for joining us. Today, I'm going to start off with the agenda. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about us, or we're going to tell you a little bit about us. We're going to ask actually kind of some questions this morning from Phil and do this kind of an interview style where we kind of ask what started the adoption of BIM 360? What type of approach did the team use for adoption? How are they currently using BIM 360? Has BIM 360 improved collaboration capabilities, external collaboration with BIM 360, and some favorite features? Followed up, of course, by a Q&A. So again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat box, and we'll get to them as soon as we see them. So your presenters today are myself. Again, my name is David Campbell. I'm an application specialist with Topcon Solution Store out of Portland, Oregon. And I have with me Phil. Phil, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Phil Bergsieker with Hoffman Construction. I'm a BIM and VDC manager here in Seattle, Washington.
All right, all right. And we're very excited to have you on, Phil, of course. A little bit about Topcon Solutions. Topcon Solutions is the retail arm of Topcon Positioning Systems, the world leader in construction layout, land surveying, machine automation products. But along with selling the complete portfolio of Topcon products, TSS or Topcon Solutions, we are a platinum tier award-winning Autodesk value-added reseller and a platinum level Bluebeam partner. Now, we are located in 20 different states, including Washington, D.C.'s, and we have 13 brick and mortar locations. So we kind of have a wide footprint there. But, you know, Phil, can you tell us a little bit about Hoffman?
Sure. Yeah, we're the largest general contractor headquartered in the Pacific Northwest. Originally, Portland is our main office, but we have a Washington main office out of here in Seattle. Generally speaking, we're pretty well diversified company. You and I talked about that a little bit before the webinar, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we specialize in high tech. We can do commercial, education, data centers. Famously recently we just did this Space Needle renovation in Seattle. So um, that's a little bit about us.
Okay, awesome, awesome. I see you guys do a little bit of everything, right? Just kind of, well, laser scanning, drone photogrammetry. I can't talk this morning.
Yeah, photogrammetry. Yeah, yeah,
Collaborative AR, VR, kind of everything.
yeah. We don't get a lot of press. It's a relatively we run a pretty lean ship here, but I think that we're right up there with other general contractors. And as far as technology goes, famously, there's a couple other landmarks here and cultural landmarks here in Seattle, like the Frank Gehry EMP, and one of my mentors here at Hoffman, Dale Stenning. He was using CATIA to coordinate the EMP building right next to the Space Needle. And
Okay.
that's pretty early adoption. There wasn't
Hmm.
really a program. It was really the project needs and the client needs that really drove that decision to have to use design technologies and construction technologies to really execute construction. And so it's a combination of exploring and using the best tools to deliver the project. And along the way, we've over a period of time have been able to implement laser scanning and in the early 2000s, the Seattle Central Library, which is the image on the lower left hand corner. The upper
Hmm.
left hand is the EMP project. And so we've been dabbling with technology in the construction realm here at Hoffman for for a long time, and
Hmm.
we've just been able to sort of move that forward, and try to incrementally find best value projects, for ourselves and for our clients, and really focus on that quality aspect. And that's
Yeah.
where, a lot of these tools come into play.
Yeah. All right. Now, I mean, I got to think that you guys are one of the, as you said, one of the largest contractors in the Pacific Northwest. And you guys have a lot of projects going on at one time, right? Trying to manage all that data, coordinate the data. That could be a pretty big task, right?
Yeah, I mean, each one of our coordinators has their own sort of spin on, the tools that they prefer or the workflows that they prefer, and the tools that are available. So it's a pretty dynamic situation here, I would say. And
Okay.
so, the amount of data that we're generating on these projects when we're collaborating with, like, designers, or more importantly, our trade partners that are inflowing their construction models that we're coordinating, is just constant. It's the document control aspect of, like, what our team is doing on a day-to-day basis. It's just
Hmm.
some of these projects are, uploading and downloading several gigs per day,
Hmm.
and maybe even more, and multiply that by however many projects that we have running concurrently. And we have a little note on there. We got a team of 12, but it's a little bit bigger than that because we do self-perform survey and laser scanning and things like that. So, uh, in even self-performed concrete, and so we have a whole separate group of people that help manage that aspect of the project. So it's a lot larger group, I think, than what we're showing here, that really adds value to our projects. But yeah, it's a tremendous amount of information relative to the size of the company and the project types that we work on.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And honestly, I keep thinking about when you guys are doing the self work, self-performing, you guys are doing your own concrete structural kind of stuff. And even as you guys tie together to these different projects, even if you're not, performing the design itself, right? But I would think that it's pretty huge to be integrated in that design process or throughout the entire process of collaborating construction documents, but really being in tune with what's going on with, of course, that design, and being able to I guess communicate and of course collaborate, coordinate with that design process into construction and then forward, right?
Yeah, for sure. Every project is just, so different. The project teams are different, the contracts are different, the deliverables and the requirements are different, both on the design side as well as the construction side. We might be working on a project where, we get these sort of iterative deliverables from the design team via the owner, and there might be BIM requirements on the design side, there might not be BIM requirements on the design side. And so we really need to understand sort of where we stand, and come up with a strategy on how to best handle a project. But to your point, we have found ourselves in on certain projects where the owner has sort of set their projects up for success by having requirements for both design and construction, or it's a
Mhm.
design build where, contractually the design team might be under contract with Hoffman. And so, it's a really trying to develop a good strategy on how best to deliver the project and create communication channels and deliverables that work for the project team in its entirety, right? And that's sort of
Mhm.
the the role that we are playing on every project, and every single one of them is different. Even deliverables for the same client can change from project to project, just because they're dabbling with different ways to, different types of contracts, different design requirements and construction requirements. And so it's all over the place. And to touch base on your comment about our self-perform group, we do quite a bit of self-perform in a lot of different areas, but specifically Hoffman structures. That's a really big deal for Hoffman, right? I mean, that's the,
Mhm.
figuratively and literally, it's the foundation of how everything else sort of pans out. It's what's driving the
Yeah.
schedule, and so we really try to take advantage of working with our HSI folks early to really understand a game plan on how to sort of execute this and set the other trade partners up for success as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a huge part of any project, I would think, from the ground up. You got to build it, and you're trying to enable, again, collaboration and enable that data flow for everyone to position that, well, position everyone moving forward for success.
Right.
So, really, I guess in talking about all of this, we should have the conversation about BIM 360, right? So let's. I got a poll for everyone out there, all of our attendees. To better understand our audience, could you please describe your experience with Autodesk's BIM 360 products? Would you say that you're a beginner, experienced, or an expert? And we'll give you a few seconds to fill that out. All right, looks like most of ours are coming in at beginner. All right, so this is going to be a good, well, good conversation. I mean, it's going to be a good conversation anyways. I'm really excited again for having Phil on with us, but we're able to kind of dive down into the inner workings of BIM 360 and talk about, again, how Hoffman has been able to use this platform to better collaborate, better to manage that data for their projects. So looks like most of ours are coming in at we have 58% beginner, 37% experienced. All right, so a good kind of also I want to say a good mixture, right? So I think this is going to be beneficial for everyone out there. So starting off, BIM 360. Phil, what made you take the first step, or what made, I guess, Hoffman take the first step into adopting BIM 360?
Well, I would say for most of our coordinators, Revit is one of the most used software platforms for logistics and self-perform. So that includes our folks at HSI, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't really have a Revit server set up. We have, I mentioned earlier, we have an Oregon main office, we have a Washington main office, but furthermore, a lot of our team members are in remote locations on the project. Depending on how large these projects are, we might have, 2, 3, 4 people working remotely at any given time as well. Um, so early on, when I first got so I'm into my 6th year here at Hoffman. So when I first got here, I was really trying to make sure that the out of the box Revit tools just worked,
Mm-hmm.
on their own, with Revit servers and accelerators, and then after that it was collaboration for Revit and so on and so forth. So when there was a migration over to BIM 360 and Teams at the time, the problem that we were really trying to solve was the fact that because we have multiple team members working in all these different types of different physical locations,
Mm-hmm.
we really needed a tool that allowed us to work together and support one another remotely without having to work across the WAN. It is really what it came down to, right? Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
working at home and you're in the VPN and you're trying to, open up a 250 meg Revit file and synchronize it and so on and so forth, that's a really frustrating and time consuming sort of experience,
Mm-hmm.
and we also have some consultants that are all over the country and world as well that we work with, and so that becomes even a bigger problem, and we don't want them working on an island by themselves and uploading an iteration every once in a while. Like we because they're a consultant to us, we want to actually have access to the source files. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was really the beginning of of that first step into making sure that collaboration for Revit and BIM 360 and the way that it supported that that mechanism. That's why we wanted to push forward, and that was sort of the beginning of us dabbling with BIM 360 in the first place. It was that need to be able to collaborate with each other essentially.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. And then of course, I think with as you said, your footprint being so large and the fact that you guys have so many different projects going on, you collaborate with people all over the world. I think that's a huge kind of, reason why we need to push into, or anyone would need to push into adopting like a cloud platform to be able to connect everyone together. Of course, being able to control again that flow of data, right? But also being able to not really have to host that information in the sense of like pushing it into a server, right? You don't have that kind of lag or that delay, I want to say, of pushing it to a server, trying to pull it back down. And again, if you're trying to open up a good sized model, even not even a big, but a good sized model, that can take a lot of time. And that time that you take away from the user really kind of adds up, wouldn't you say?
If there's one thing that absolutely frustrates me in the position that I'm in, is the amount of like dot control, upload, download, archiving. I mean, that
Yeah.
if there's one thing that I just don't look forward to, performing a particular job function, it's that aspect of it, that dot control perspective. And so I'm
Hmm.
always looking to work smarter, um, and not harder. So if I can provide myself with a tool that allows me to bypass that aspect of the project, of my day-to-day function, I'm all for it. And that's really what it came down to. And a lot of the people that we're trying to support here at Hoffman and HSI and so on and so forth have the same sentiment.
Hmm.
It's not adding any value to your projects. It's just a waste of time, really.
Yep, yep, I completely agree. Now, how long do you think it took until you or your users felt confident using BIM 360?
It was to the extent that we were using it initially, like leveraging the hosting a Revit file on BIM 360. It was a pretty easy transition. There was the interface is a little bit different. You can access it through Revit. You can also access it through the web. So you have to sort of you know um, run through that. But for the most part, it was a pretty easy transition for HSI, and the rest of our BIM coordinators and project support teams eventually got used to it as well. So it wasn't that difficult of a transition um, initially with the HSI folks. I would say that maybe the transition to using some of the other tools that BIM 360 offers is a little
Yep.
bit maybe more complicated, but right out of the box, I mean, just being able to host your files there in the cloud is a win, and it's a
Hmm.
pretty it's an easy interface to understand and how Revit and Docs works.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I actually like talking about this quite a bit with document management. The feeling to me, if someone builds the folder structure correctly, it's almost just like another local drive or it's another FTP site. It's an access point to grab this information, and everybody, well, not everybody, but most people in our industry at this point are used to that, right? I mean, we go file open, we look for the document, we look for the model we want to get into. Whether you're in Revit, it's insert Revit link, things like that. And of course, having that desktop connector to connect everything through, so it's like a map drive kind of thing. We can go right into BIM 360, or of course, using your Revit home screen um, to give us, where to find that information. So at its base, managing or allowing everyone to I guess control that data, set it in there. Again, I think about it like another site or local drive that I'm storing my models on. That's at the base, right? And we can, of course, adjust folder permissions to allow different individuals into different folders, creating team spaces. There's a lot further that we can go with it in the sense of, we start talking about the versioning, and we start talking about the workflows of publish versus consume and live linking, and different things like that, different ways to get into how you're getting this information, and again, how accurate is this information, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head, right? I think that the common data, CDE or common data environment is an important conversation in our space, in the AEC space, and in even certain owners are recognizing that as well, right? If they're getting best value out of their projects, but that incremental implementation on our end, just to selfishly trying to um, find a solution for our own internal challenges, right?
Hmm.
And then and you know and then as things sort of progress, you know okay, now we have a consultant that's helping us out on the project. And to your point, what are the permissions necessary? We don't necessarily want them to have access to everything on our hub. So that gave that was like another action item on my list of things to do. Like, now I had to look into how I was less concerned about permissions when it was only Hoffman and HSI on there, but now you have
Hmm.
you're already you're opening up the doors to others to sort of collaborate with you.
Hmm.
And that's where you really get to the fun part, understanding permissions and how to invite folks and organize your project templates
Hmm.
um, to accommodate all these different stakeholders potentially working in one project hub. And so that is something that you have to take into consideration when doing it. But once you get your system in place and how you want to organize data flow and permissions, it becomes a really powerful tool.
Oh yeah, yeah, I can imagine. And I mean, you hit a huge point there, templatizing that information, templatizing some of these projects, or well, really the projects, but the folder structures, right? That giving them that common data environment based off of the use, or that stakeholders use of that project, creating a few different types of templates. So moving forward, whether it's, permissions, it's roles, whatever it is, setting these projects up with a template can really help set you up for success later on in the project itself, get you going a little bit faster, but also give everyone that's involved with it a little bit of, I want to say, familiarity, right? In the sense of this is normal, this is what we're working in, this is, I know where to go to get my data. And when you start bringing others in, that's when you can kind of start standardizing that and say, okay, this is where you go for this is where we go for that. And just not having to put that much effort into every single project to redo that, right?
Yeah, it's pretty, I had to learn most of this, the school of hard knocks is the way that I had to learn, you know, a process and a template that worked best for our projects. But to my earlier point, I mean, every project is just so different, but if there's
Mhm.
some consistencies in your projects and your project teams and the way that you're collaborating, leveraging a template could be really powerful. um, Again, the school of hard knocks. And luckily I had Topcon there. I think David, you, Ian, and uh, Joey at Topcon were on speed dial, like on some of these earlier implementations. But we were able to overcome that, and now we have a really powerful tool, and have a really good understanding of how to handle project stakeholders and their permissions and things. But templates can be a really powerful tool.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Now speaking on that point too, what did you do, or what did you, what steps did you kind of go through or follow to get buy-in from higher ups on implementing BIM 360?
I think it was a pretty a relatively easy sell, right? I talked about it earlier about trying to overcome the challenges of having multiple team members work on the same file in different physical locations.
Hmm.
And it's a lot easier solution to have a cloud-based solution rather than improve networking or things like that, that really put our IT department in a awkward situation where they're trying to force networks and servers to do something that a cloud-based solution like BIM 360 can solve right out of the gate, and they
Mhm.
actually, I think, appreciate that, because the data flow that I was talking about earlier can really hinder the network systems and affect other business operations. If we have, like, executive meetings going on, or we're trying to have a conversation with a client, and we have an army of BIM coordinators that are uploading and downloading gigs worth of data, and our network gets crushed, and it becomes a
Yeah.
problem. And so it was a relatively easy sell. I think that where I had maybe the most success in getting buy-in in leveraging a tool like this on a project for stakeholders outside of the Hoffman realm, was these IPD design build type projects,
Mhm.
where we don't want the design team sort of working in a silo. We would like the entire project team to work in the same environment, and the value proposition of being able to have early access and iterative access, through BIM 360, link those files in, and if it's a design build project and we have design assist trade partners working in parallel with them to help inform constructability, we're able to include um, those design assist trade partners with access and authoring tools as well. And so it's a two-way street at that point, where we're we've set the design team up for success, we've set up our trade partners for success, and now we have a system in play where information can go both ways. And so
Mhm.
the quality of the design and the quality of the coordination relative to the trade partners input is improved at that point. And you know that aspect of what I was trying to pitch is really what helped us scale BIM 360 outside of the Hoffman realm.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that's huge. Being able to connect everybody together and again kind of see that flow of data, the models as they change. It's huge for us, and being able to connect all the trade partners together. It's very beneficial. But I guess my question is, how are you able to, like, we see it's beneficial within Hoffman and with the trade partners, but how were you able to pitch BIM 360 to potential clients?
It's been less of an issue with the clients. Interestingly enough, when we started to implement BIM 360 in-house, started to work with certain clients that actually provided their own BIM 360 hub for the
Oh.
design team and the construction team. And for me, that's the most I that's an ideal situation, because now you have an owner that gets it, that is looking
Mhm.
to set up your design team and set up your general contractor and all the trade partners and stakeholders up for success. So we haven't really this is something that we've outside of that example, this is something that we just found enough value where we were going to do this whether or not the owner asked for it or not. It's just something that we're doing on our own and putting our best foot forward. And more importantly, we want to deliver a project for our client that is, second to none. So when it
Mhm.
comes to like quality and safety and not, avoiding having to go over budget at all costs, and so we try to set our trade partners up for success. I mean, they're a partner. We don't refer to them as subcontractors. They're a
Yeah.
partner. If they're not succeeding, then we're not succeeding, and vice versa. So this is just something that we took a leap forward to, just take that next jump into the future when it came to providing our project teams and owners the best um, um, options for success.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's great. And I mean, really, I love hearing about that with educated owners, and they're just that, like, if they've already created their own hub, that means they know, or at least they have an idea of how to, again, manage that data, how to pull those metrics, and they want to be involved in the process. That's a great thing. I love hearing that. Um, how many projects would you say that you're currently hosting in BIM 360 currently?
I think on our own hub projects that we're managing, we have maybe about 15 or 20. And
Okay.
a lot of those projects, the construction durations before we can move a BIM coordinator off the pre-con sort of effort and onto another project. It just depends on what the project type is. But we have about 15 or 20 in circulation right now. But I think it was the beginning of the year it was I don't want to call it a mandate, but the general consensus is that every project moving forward in the beginning of 2020, starting in the beginning of 2020, would be managed on BIM 360 one way or another.
Hmm.
But those are just on our hub. We've also worked on projects, or we're involved with projects right now where we have, to my earlier example, where we have clients providing the hub for us, which is really, really great, right? So
Hmm.
not only can you manage your own, but you also have access to someone else's hub that's providing the licensing structure and all of the tools for our project teams to succeed on the design side and the construction side,
Hmm.
as well as trade partners. And then I was involved with a project. It was just your sort of traditional design bid build type of project, and we got some early engagement with the design team, and we've been able to overcome some of the sort of intellectual property concerns and just come up with a game plan on because they've already started design. They already have the BIM 360 hub, so our project team members had to sit down and negotiated um, uh, leveraging the design team's hub for construction.
Hmm.
So we worked something out where we're just going to continue to roll in that CDE and that common data environment on the design side, even though there's no contractual relationship between the design team and the contractor. And so
Hmm.
those are other things that are happening right now. And so we have a handful of those in play as well. So it's a little bit of everything right now. But if there isn't anything set up, we're definitely pushing and negotiating with our project managers to really say, hey, this is the way we're doing things. We're getting a ton of value out of this, and so that's where we're at. And that was in a relatively short period of time. That was over maybe a 2-year period of time when we really started to use BIM 360 to the extent where we were bringing in other consultants and trade partners and design teams to our project. So it's scaled pretty quickly over the last couple of years, I would say.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, I'm a very big into that idea of bridging the gap between design and construction. I think that's something in our industry that really does need to be addressed. And I think if we can get the contractors involved sooner in the design process, it's better for everybody involved because the design at some point can go hands off, or at least ask, right, to communicate with their trade partners, with the construction partners that they're going to have, about how the detailing needs to be done to be beneficial to those partners. And I think that entire process, that's huge. That's a big shout out to you guys and what you're doing there. I think that, of course, the more that we can see BIM 360 as this kind of a common data environment again, right? But giving everybody the access to come together and see that we really want this project to succeed. It's not about how much money we're going to make. It's not about this. It's not about that. It's really, we want to set everyone up for success, and we want this project to go well. And let's go ahead and see what we can do, who can get involved earlier, who can detail, and how we can really better our communication processes to help this entire process move forward.
Agreed. I think to maybe add to that comment, essentially what we're doing, is providing some transparency between what these deliverables are in the construction process, and so it's somewhat of a two-way street, right? Not only do we want to have some early engagement with the design team, um, but we also want to be able to share any construction related um, activities, whether
Hmm.
it be from a trade partner. And not every not every project at Hoffman is just all about unloading BIM requirements to trade partners, right? There's a lot of um, project related data um, relative to logistics. So
Hmm.
excavation, shoring, cranes, lay down trailers. There's a lot of other things that just you're not going to get,
Hmm.
in a traditional design package that we need to take into consideration to succeed, right? And so when we're developing that content and the design team has access to those files as well, that's really useful information for them to make informed decisions,
Hmm.
whether it's during design or it's like in response to like an RFI, or they're looking for, you know, design. They have to incorporate a design change from the owner or something like that, and we're halfway through construction, and all of a sudden there's a little bit of a curveball thrown into the mix, rather than reference just the design documentation or the contract documents as they stood at the time. They have access to actually reality, and everything that had been, um, all the shop drawings and submittals that have been approved are reflected in our models. And so
Hmm.
that's a really powerful tool for a design team to leverage in design decision making. And this is like sort of the platform that allows that to happen in a relatively easy way.
Yeah, I agree. I like to think about it as little pieces of a puzzle. Every piece has its purpose, and it needs to come together to make, the complete puzzle or project in this sense. Every piece of data needs to come together, and being able to host it again in a common data environment kind of helps everybody involved. And I guess that goes right back to collaboration. Right now, I think this is a question you've already answered, but would you say that using BIM 360 has increased your collaboration capabilities?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because previously I was speaking about sort of the relationship between GC and designers and trying to streamline that communication. But you know typically a general contractor is is having all of these file formats incoming to us, and we're compiling it. And what we at Hoffman, we've referred to it as a federated model. And I suspect that there are a large percentage of the GCs that might be on this call that refer to that as the same. But essentially that is a model with all of the latest and greatest files available both on the design side and the construction side.
Hmm.
But what the workflow prior to having something like BIM 360 was that we would process those files, we would regurgitate some form of a clash report of some sorts, and start tossing over, you know, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of potential clash issues back to the trade partners, and have them be somewhat reactive in understanding their respective scope of work in relationship to others, right? And so they're waiting. The general contractor is sort of the bottleneck in a lot of ways in that respect. And so when we provide an environment like this and invite our stakeholders, including the trade partners, and there's some application challenges that you might have to overcome, but let's just make the assumption that there's a certain percentage of them that are using Revit for their detailing efforts. They can host that file on our hub, and rather than wait for Hoffman to pump out a report of coordination issues, they can link each other's work in progress models or iterative models amongst each other to make more informed decisions. So the quality of BIM coordination that I'm seeing when providing our project teams this platform has increased the efficacy and the quality of the coordination effort,
Hmm.
because they're not waiting on me, you know, to tell them what's wrong with it. They can make those proactive sort of routing adjustments or coordination efforts. So the number of clashes that I've had to report, just generally speaking, seems to be less of an issue, because we're giving them tools to just do it. And that's sort
Yep.
of what designers are already somewhat doing, linking each other's models, and we're trying to replicate that. But it's a little bit different situation, like I said, because of the different application used for fabrication and detailing. But we have other tricks up our sleeve on how to handle that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a huge kind of component, I think, and a huge kind of piece of BIM 360, being able to link those models together. And I know that we do that a lot for design anyways, trying to get, make sure I'm not going to run my duct through a column or beam or anything like that. But I also think, as I'm showing here, the issues that we can kind of create, right? I think that's another, like, outside of that common data environment, but also kind of tying back into it, in the sense that all of these models, we can link them together, we can view them, right? We have a nice viewer that we can get into. And if we start seeing issues, we can communicate that early, no matter what stage in the process we are. If we're, it's a linked model, or if I'm viewing another person's model, or if I just want to say, hey, look at this, we need to move this over 1 foot, and maybe attach a photo to it, assign responsibility. I think, again, that's another kind of huge portion to this, because not only can we track that data, such as these clashes or these issues that we see, but we can control the flow of that data. Okay, this is the person I need this to be assigned to. That person is going to get an email, right? They're going to have a chance to reply back to it and say, okay, I've updated this in my design. And I think, really pushing the limits of collaboration, right? And enabling that, and in the sense that before I would wait for drawings to come in the mail, or even somebody would email it to me, right? And I'd link it in, I'd start working. And up until they send me that next updated model, I don't know what's going on with that, right? So I'm just modeling the way that I am in what I have. But again, being able to not only just view the models and communicate, but linking them in, and then being able to communicate throughout that entire process is huge.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the benefits of the design collaboration. The image that you have up there right now is sort of that that milestone publishing
Oh yeah.
deliverable, maybe cadence that you might have established in your execution plan and whatnot. And one of the benefits that, from a technical perspective, that maybe we ought to mention is the fact that there's always a lot of concern, like, well, this is a work in progress. We don't necessarily want to share this information because it's not an official deliverable, or it falls between our cadence in uploads. With this platform, you're able to link um, both of those files. Not only do you have the ability to link in a more intentional milestone, um, moment in time that was
Mhm.
more intentional, you also have the ability, let's say you're having a sidebar collaboration between the structural engineer and the mechanical engineer about maybe, the possibility of thinning up a wide flange or something like that, right?
Mhm.
They have the ability to link in the WIP. We refer to that as WIP. So work in progress. You have the ability to temporarily link in the WIP to make informed decisions that are ultimately going to make it into the next iterative publish that was meant for consumption to the project team in its entirety, right?
Mhm.
And this allows you to do that. So you have the ability to link in multiple iterations of the same exact model with this program, and that's a really powerful tool. And at your discretion, right? You have
Mhm.
the end user is the one that has the ability to control which files you're actually linking in and referencing, and which is
Yep.
it's not. There's a system in place that allows you to manage each stakeholder's ability to manage the the reference data.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think those packages are great, being able to publish that information as you're kind of talking about, and publish this package, right? Share this package of information. But also, of course, being able to work on that WIP, that work in progress, being able to just be a part of that, have a part of that, and then again, have that kind of packaged milestone information that we can track and see again how this project is changing, how it's grown. And then one big thing I think about this module here, the design collaboration, of course, creating those packages, but being able to investigate those packages, checking them out for changes, making sure that you want to consume that model, to bring that model into your environment. Is that something that I want to have all of my teams update this link? We're talking about all of our end users and the kind of uh, capabilities we're pushing out to them, but also some of the stuff can take time, right? And it's something to think about. Whereas I think about these packages in the sense of someone in terms of a VDC BIM manager can go in and say, okay, is this really what we want? Is this what I want to update? I want to have everybody stop. We'll, update our links and bring in this new, or can we just keep going with what we have?
Agreed. It gives your project teams flexibility in understanding these different progress packages to your point.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, do you find it hard or kind of easy for others to adapt BIM 360 on projects?
That's a good question. I think that the people that you know that we talk to or I talk to in getting a BIM execution plan in place, getting our BIM execution requirements, which is basically um, our uh, our, uh, our contractual obligations to not only our client but our trade partners as well on what this program might look like. I'm typically talking to people that are somewhat like-minded that are in the BIM and VDC space, and just in my experience, we're folks like you and I are a lot more apt to look into and understand what problems we're trying to solve. So for the most part, it's been a pretty easy pitch in regards to adoption. You know, um, for the most part, there's always the stick in the mud or the stick in the spoke, so to speak, that you really have to win them over and really encourage them and stick with some of these individuals that are sort of being a little bit resistant to change, and I don't blame them. We all like our comfort zones, and you get your process dialed in and you're good at it and you feel like you can knock out your projects because you spent your entire career doing it one way, and why change that right now? It's just going to create more of a headache on someone else's end, and we can't look at it like that. I think that again, I try to have the perspective that this is just beneficial for everyone that's involved, with the ultimate end goal of a high quality product, and we want everybody to make money too, and um, sometimes you got to win some people over, but for the most part, I think that when you're talking about folks that are in our space, it's a pretty easy. It's easy to learn, easier to learn because you're apt and you already have that mind set of trying to understand how to use it. So it's not too big of a problem from my perspective. David, I think you're on mute there.
Oh, yep. It's a lot of our industry is on the same kind of page, I guess, with that in terms of adopting that technology, really trying to push these boundaries and push it forward to get everybody, I guess, on the same page, but also, again, moving forward, right? We want to bring everybody else up. But what I'm seeing that's kind of interesting is the adoption of BIM 360 has been kind of increasing. It's been increasing the more that we're seeing the demand for remote work, right? And people working again from all over, having projects from all over, being able to connect and share this data. And it's a very, I think it is a very telling thing. Like people can easily see that if we can enable this collaboration, if we can use this to again control, manage that data, but also share this information to any of our stakeholders, it is a very valuable or beneficial thing.
Agreed.
Now, so one more question for you. I know we're running kind of low on time here, but one more question for you. What would you say are your favorite features of BIM 360 design?
I think that there's two. I think the most obvious one, this February March COVID-19 situation
Yeah.
really, I just can't imagine if we didn't have this in place already. I just can't imagine what we would have probably had to been dealing with, as far as, you know, uh, our group is basically in the pre-con realm,
Hmm.
and we're supporting activities that haven't happened in reality yet, right? And the success of our project is predicated on that effort. And so for the most part, we were, outside of the stress of having to, I have a 4-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son at home, and having to work from home provided its own challenges. But
Yeah.
you know, for the most part though, our project teams have been able to keep that momentum going,
Hmm.
and honestly, this year I've been probably busier than um I've ever been in my career, and I think it's a testament to having a tool like this in place for our team, and
Hmm.
so the mere fact that I'm able to work essentially from anywhere in the world with my project team and our stakeholders and trade partners is a testament to what is possible using this platform. So that by far is probably the most beneficial. Um,
Okay.
but the um, the design collaboration function as well, and we touched base on it a little bit about having that ability to collaborate in a um, in a meaningful way,
Hmm.
and being somewhat selective with which files you're using or leveraging or sharing and consuming, and tracking that in a dashboard in a CDE like this is also a really powerful tool, because you're not getting that, you know, with Box or an FTP site or
Hmm.
a server, whatever tools you might be using right now. You're not able to leverage the way that Revit and some of the other Autodesk products use the Forge BIM 360 platform. So
Hmm.
those are my two favorite. We're only using, full disclosure, right? We're just scratching the surface of what BIM 360 can do, and as far as the life cycle of a project delivery, from schematic all the way to ownership, and this platform um, is really the rails that everything else can sort of build from. You can
Hmm.
scale it, and it can provide your project team and your respective businesses. I think if you don't already have some of these things in place, this could be a great start for that.
Okay. All right. Now, so I do have a couple of questions from our attendees here. Actually, a shout out to you. Phil introduced me to BIM 360 3 to 4 years ago, and we're now 50 plus projects deep. Jeff Fontana says, thanks, Phil. So you
Oh yeah.
introduced, yeah. And Jeff also has another question. On a BIM 360 project, how is Hoffman currently dealing with point clouds, hosting, publishing, etc.?
So point clouds is a really that's a good question. We haven't found too much success personally on my end, and so we typically try not to host point clouds on our server or on BIM 360. Our preferences is to host them locally, because of if you have access to your point clouds, get that like on an external or something like that, and sort of lug that around, because the data set is just, we just published a file the other day that had a point cloud in it. It was like 4 or 5 gigs or something like that, and that's just unrealistic, and it doesn't seem like it's quite there yet.
Hmm.
Based on my experience, I know enough to be dangerous, but David, you might be able to speak to it from a technical perspective more than I can, but
Yeah.
we're not hosting point cloud data um, on BIM 360. We are looking into other tools that might be catered to point cloud, and you know that has a lot to do with like registration and cloud.
Hmm.
There's other survey scanning and laser products out there that we might be looking into, but for the most part, we're not even putting it on BIM 360.
Okay. All right. As a note on that one too, I've personally found out that you actually cannot. Oh, sorry about that notification there. You actually cannot store an RCP, a recap project, on BIM 360 at this time. The RCS files will work, the individual scans, those will work. You can pull them in, link them in, stuff like that. So for smaller point clouds, as Phil kind of pointed to as well, I mean, I know some of these scans can get huge, right? Hosting them on BIM 360 is possible if you're, again, hosting RCS, which can be that can be quite a feat trying to link them in, especially if you have a bunch of different scans that you're trying to bring in. And the more that you bring in, of course, it extends or expands out the size of your model. Now, of course, being able to host any like file size on there is definitely beneficial, but it's all based on your usage case, right? If you're needing to host it there and you're referencing these scans and you're not going to be able to really view them in the 3D viewer, right? You can't really place issues, things like that. If you're just using it to host it, store it there, maybe link it into your models, we could see it. I mean, I could see it somewhat as being beneficial, right? But again, it's based off of that use case. Now, I can't wait to see where it goes. I'm hoping that eventually we see more of that kind of come into. I honestly want to see a little bit of verification. If I put a point cloud up there, can I link it into my Revit model? And as I'm modeling, does it recognize the point cloud and maybe comes up with a clash of itself if I have as built that I'm trying to design against, anything like that. Things like that. It's on my wish list, right? It's on
Yeah,
my wish list. I can't wait to see it. Thank you so much, Phil, for joining us and sharing all of the information that you've shared with us. And thank you, Hoffman, of course, for allowing Phil to come on with us, have this great conversation about the great work that you guys do here in the Pacific Northwest.
yeah, appreciate it, David. Thanks for having me.
So thank you, everyone. If you have any questions for us, please feel free to contact us at info@topconsolutions.com. We do have our number there hosted on the slide. And thank you again to Phil for joining us today. Any other questions, please feel free to reach out.